This is the Canon 5 DSR, and it is Canon's studio camera with 50 megapixels, the biggest full-frame sensor ever made. So let's try it out in the studio against the 36 megapixel D810, the old 5D Mark III, and later the Olympus EM5 Mark II. First, let's compare the 5DSR to the 5D Mark III. Zooming in, we can see the 5DSR has just intense amounts of detail. Let's zoom in a little bit tighter so everybody can see the extra pixels. Now, these were not quite at the same focal length, so they look a little bit different, but you can just see in the eyelashes just crazy amounts of detail that just aren't present in the 5D on the right. Let's compare the 5DSR to the D810. You can see the color temperature ended up a little bit different. That's easy enough to fix in post, but looking at the detail, I definitely see more detail out of the 5DSR, whether that's because of the 50 megapixel sensor compared to the 36 megapixel sensor, or whether it's the Canon 70-200 versus the Nikon 70-200, I can't be sure. Let's back up a little bit and raise the exposure. Let's raise 2 stops and we can start to reveal the background some here. This is something we'll do for portraits when we want to show more detail in the hair. Let's look at her jacket. We do see substantially more noise in the shadows on the Canon than on the Nikon. For a couple of reasons, the Nikon's able to shoot at ISO 64, so everything's going to be a little bit cleaner. The Canon has a minimum ISO of 100, but also the Nikon clearly just has a way better dynamic range. But when everything was properly exposed, I thought the 5DSR's image looked better than the D810. Now let's add the amazing EM5 Mark II from Olympus to this mix. It is a high-res mode that combines 8 separate pictures to create an extremely clean 40 megapixel picture. I'm using mirror lockup and a remote trigger to make sure everything's as stable as it can possibly be. Now let's look at the still life shot. This is the 5DSR on the left and the 5D Mark III on the right. We focused right on this label here. Right away, the increased sharpness on the 5DSR is evident. It just looks so much better, so much cleaner. You can even see the fabric of the paper, something that's completely hidden on the 5D Mark III. Let's compare it to the EM5 Mark II. This is in high-res mode, the 40 megapixel high-res mode that takes 8 separate shots. And here, again, the Canon looks much better, but this EM5 Mark II actually beat the D810 in the past using a sharper prime lens rather than the 51-150. We chose to use the 70-200 equivalents for each of the different cameras, so a sharper lens might do better on the EM5 Mark II. Let's take a look at the D810 versus the 5DSR. Here again, we see noticeably more detail on the 5DSR than on the D810. I think either one is freaky amounts of detail, but you can clearly see that the 5DSR and the Canon 70-200 produce more detail than the D810 and the Nikon 70-200. Let's raise up the exposure to take a look at the detail on the bottles and how that handles it. Raising it up 3 full stops, a lot of that starts to come out. You can see a lot of the information just seems to be lost on the Canon, but the Nikon actually managed to pick up some of the background there. So once again, the Nikon seems to have more dynamic range, somewhat cleaner images, partially due to the ability to use ISO 64, but the Canon clearly has more detail, and I think the amount of noise of ISO 100 is going to be good enough for most people.
For more free videos, subscribe to our channel, and if you'd like a copy of SDP, go to sdp.io/store or Amazon.